If you're listening to this right now, chances are you've opened your electric bill recently. And chances are you felt a jolt, not from the wires, but from that final number.
Right.
For millions of us all across the country, that number is up. I mean, substantially up. We're talking 20, 30, even 40% increases year over year.
And when you've inevitably called your utility provider, or you've seen the local news trying to explain it, you get the same old excuses.
Oh, yeah, the classics.
The classics is generalized inflation, or my favorite, it was an unusually hot summer, so you used more power.
We are here today to tell you that those standard explanations are, at best, incomplete. At worst, they are a lie.
A deliberate narrative.
Exactly. A narrative designed to hide the truth. Your bill isn't going up because you suddenly started using 50% more power. Your bill is soaring because you are paying forcefully, secretly, and structurally for someone else's breathtaking, massive, and frankly, exponentially increasing energy consumption.
And this isn't hyperbole. We are living through what energy experts, people on Wall Street are now calling the grid war.
The grid war.
This conflict is driving the largest, most critical infrastructure build-out in modern American history. We're talking about a project that will cost trillions of dollars over the next decade.
Trillions.
And the driver is singular. The explosion of AI data centers, all fueled by the insatiable demands of giants like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft.
And here is the core injustice. This is what this entire deep dive is about. The tech giants, arguably the wealthiest corporations the world has ever known, they just don't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
They have brokered this quiet, secret deal with the utility companies, the regulated monopolies, to systematically shift billions, and I mean billions, of dollars in cost directly onto you, onto the residential ratepayers.
This isn't just a high bill. This is a massive structural wealth transfer.
It's unbelievable, the audacity of it. It's on the scale of the 2008 bank bailouts, where the public was forced to absorb all the private risk.
It's the same playbook.
Except this time, the victims aren't just taxpayers in general. They're specific people. They're fixed-income households, small business owners, and yes, grandmothers in the suburbs, all unwittingly subsidizing the cloud and AI empires of the world's richest men.
So our mission today is to move past the noise, forget the convenient distraction of inflation, and just meticulously follow the money.
Right.
We need to look at the contracts, expose the legislative loopholes, and really understand the deep institutional mechanisms that allow this to happen, that allow this immense transfer of wealth from your pockets to their balance sheets.
Okay, let's unpack this. You are subsidizing the wealthiest companies on Earth. And we are going to start by walking you through the actual financial mechanism of the robbery itself.
To really get this, to grasp the scale of it, we first have to understand what a utility company actually is. It's a very unique and powerful legal entity.
Yeah.
Utilities are what we call regulated monopolies. You, the listener, you have no choice of provider. There's only one company you can buy power from.
Right. I can't shop around for a better deal on electricity.
Exactly. And that monopoly power is supposed to be checked by state-level regulators. They're often called public utility commissions, or PUCs.
Supposed to be.
Supposed to be. And critically, here's the key. Utilities are legally allowed to charge their captive customers for the cost of maintaining, operating, and expanding the grid, plus a legally guaranteed profit margin.
Wait, stop right there. A guaranteed profit.
A guaranteed profit. It's known as the return on equity, or ROE, and it usually hovers somewhere between 9 and 11%.
So that guaranteed profit is the whole game, right? If they spend $1 billion, they are guaranteed to get that billion back from us, the ratepayers, plus another $100 million in pure profit.
That is precisely the incentive structure.
It sounds like an incentive structure that's just designed to encourage overspending.
It absolutely is, and it's the first crucial lever in this whole scam. Utilities are highly motivated to increase their capital expenditures, their CapEx, because every new substation, every mile of new wire, it increases their rate base.
And the rate base is the asset number that their guaranteed profit is calculated on.
You got it. The more they spend, the more they are legally allowed to make in profit. It guarantees their revenue growth no matter what the rest of the economy is doing.
Okay, so now let's apply this to the AI boom. When a behemoth like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud decides to build a new, enormous data center campus, let's say in Northern Virginia, which we now call Data Center Alley.
Or Central Ohio, another huge hub.
Right. They don't just need a regular plug. They
Right.
require a mind-boggling, concentrated amount of power that the existing local grid was just never designed to handle.
Never. We're talking about single campuses that consume the equivalent power of a mid-sized American city.
That's insane.
The demand is massive and it's instantaneous. To fulfill that need, you need completely new, dedicated infrastructure that costs billions. New high-voltage transmission lines stretching for dozens of miles, specialized substations built just for that data center, and sometimes even brand-new power plants.
So, if Amazon is the primary, or frankly, the only reason this multi-billion-dollar project needs to be built, the cost should logically fall on Amazon.
Right.
They should pay for their own specialized highway.
That is what fairness and transparency would dictate. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this is where the legal loophole is just masterfully exploited.
Oh.
If the utility sent a multi-billion-dollar bill directly to big tech, that tech company would, they'd probably negotiate a steep discount or just threaten to build somewhere else.
Okay.
So instead, the utility company classifies this massive, dedicated infrastructure build-out as general grid modernization.
Modernization.
They categorize it as general system improvements or reliability enhancements that supposedly benefit the entire region.
This is the beautiful piece of obfuscation. I mean, how do they sell this to the regulators? Surely the PUCs can see that a new 500 kV line that terminates directly at a Microsoft campus is not for general reliability.
They use very sophisticated load modeling and forecasting, you see. They argue that while, yes, the immediate draw is big tech, the overall system benefits from having new, robust lines. It adds capacity, it adds resilience.
So it's a rising tide lifts all boats argument.
Exactly. They tell the PUC that this new industrial growth is necessary for the state's economic future, and that by facilitating it, everyone ultimately benefits. They present their case not as a project for one client, but as them getting ahead of a forecasted huge increase in regional demand.
A demand that conveniently only the AI centers are actually driving.
Correct. And the regulatory commissions, which are often under immense political pressure to attract these massive corporate investments, investments that promise jobs, even if those jobs require negligible power, they tend to agree.
Of course they do.
So the utility then files for a new rider or a surcharge. In places like Virginia, which has the highest concentration of data centers on the planet, utilities have pushed for and won approval for all kinds of these things. Infrastructure recovery surcharges or distribution riders.
And these are separate line items on the bill.
Yes, distinct from the base rate. It's a separate line item that lets the utility immediately start recouping the cost of the new project, plus their guaranteed profit.
This is where the residential customer, the captive audience, just gets hammered.
This is it.
The utility goes to the regulator, claims a need to raise rates on everyone, the entire rate base, to cover these supposed regional upgrades. Meanwhile, you, the listener, in your suburban home, you might be using less power than you were 5 years ago because you got LED bulbs and efficient appliances, but suddenly that monthly bill has a new $40 surcharge on it.
And that surcharge is paying for Amazon's dedicated substation.
Unbelievable.
We've seen specific rate case filings in the PJM region, that's the grid operator for the Mid-Atlantic, where utilities requested rate hikes, citing the necessity to reinforce transmission lines to meet unprecedented concentrated industrial load growth.
A euphemism.
A direct euphemism for data centers. The direct, undeniable outcome is this. Amazon gets its tailor-made, multi-billion-dollar infrastructure for their cloud and AI models, and the average residential ratepayer gets a structural hike on their monthly bill that pays the principal and the 10% guaranteed profit on the construction loan for Amazon's infrastructure.
The data from Data Center Alley is the smoking gun, isn't it? Residential energy usage is flat or even declining, yet residential rates are just skyrocketing year after year.
It's an unavoidable correlation.
Utilities are sinking billions into power infrastructure that serves only these massive data center complexes, and the legal cost mechanism forces you to fund their guaranteed return. It really is the perfect analogy. You are paying for the new, specialized road so Amazon can drive their 10-ton truck on it for free.
And we have to emphasize this isn't a one-time charge. These infrastructure assets are amortized over decades. So for the next 20 or 30 years, fixed-income household and small businesses in that area are structurally locked into subsidizing the infrastructure of the world's wealthiest corporations.
It's a literal redistribution of wealth upwards.
Socialized cost, privatized profit. The system is perfectly engineered for this outcome. It gives the utility the incentive, which is guaranteed profit, and it gives big tech the cover, which is cost avoidance.
But wait, is there any genuine counterargument? I mean, surely there's a perspective where facilitating this massive growth is a regional benefit. These companies promise economic growth, maybe lower taxes, some jobs. Doesn't that justify socializing some of the cost?
That is the argument, and it's the one the utilities successfully use. They argue that without these upgrades, the grid would fail for everyone, and the economic loss of turning away that corporate investment would hurt the state's tax base.
But is it true?
Well, the key distinction is that the upgrades are often not general. They are highly specialized and highly concentrated. If the benefit were truly general, the load would be spread out. It's not. It's intensely focused on these data center hubs.
And the jobs.
The promised economic benefits are often minimal compared to the infrastructure cost. Data centers are largely automated. They require very few permanent, high-paying local jobs once they're built, so the actual benefit to the grandmother paying the surcharge is zero, while her cost is permanent.
So the economic development argument is essentially the political justification for institutional theft. The moment you see a new infrastructure rider on your bill, you are paying the toll for someone else's success. That is the outrage at the core of the grid war. So the robbery begins with your money. But as we dive deeper into the contracts and the tactics big tech is using, the next layer of the scandal it emerges.
Right.
They're not only stealing the funding for the wires, they are actively stealing your electrons. Specifically, the most reliable, the cheapest, and the cleanest baseload power that's available on the grid.
This is a huge escalation. Stealing capacity is, in many ways, far more damaging than just stealing capital.
Why?
We need to lay out the context first. The critical difference between baseload power and what are called peaker plants.
Oh.
Baseload power is the bedrock of the entire grid. It's the energy generated by huge plants. Historically, it was coal. Now it's primarily nuclear or large hydro that run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no matter what.
They just hum along constantly.
Constantly. And because they run so efficiently, their energy is generally the cheapest available in the wholesale market. It provides the indispensable foundation of stability for the whole system.
And the data centers need baseload. They require that steady, predictable supply because shutting down an AI training model because of a power flicker is incredibly expensive.
It's catastrophic for them. AI demands stability. And this brings us to a specific and frankly devastating case study from 2024.
Okay.
The Amazon Talon deal involving the Susquehanna nuclear plant in Pennsylvania.
Walk us through the mechanics of that deal. What was the critical maneuver here?
So Amazon entered into an agreement with Talon Energy to purchase the output of the Susquehanna nuclear plant. Now, if they had simply purchased the power from the grid, that would be a normal transaction.
Right, they'd just be a big customer.
A very big customer. The utility generates the power. Amazon consumes it, paying the market rate. But Amazon executed a far more crucial and disruptive tactic. They arranged to take the entire nuclear plant behind the meter.
Behind the meter? What does that even mean? It sounds so technical, so innocuous.
It's anything but harmless. It means Amazon effectively removed the Susquehanna nuclear plant from the public pool of resources.
They took it offline for the public.
Exactly. They severed the physical and legal ties connecting the plant's generation capacity to the regional grid operator, PJM, which is responsible for keeping the lights on across 13 states. Instead, they plugged the plant's full 960 megawatts of power.
Which is enough to power what?
Nearly 1 million homes.
Wow!
They plugged it directly into their dedicated adjacent data center complex.
So 960 megawatts of reliable, cheap, existing, and clean baseload power just vanished from the public market.
Instantly. It disappeared from the supply curve. It's just gone from the calculation PJM uses to balance supply and demand every second.
That is not a transaction. That's the privatization of a public good, an asset that was subsidized and licensed for decades with the understanding that it would serve the general public.
And the immediate economic chain reaction is brutal. PJM is now left with a massive 960 megawatt hole in its baseload capacity.
And the system can't operate with a deficit.
It cannot. The physics of grid stability mean they are forced to fill that hole instantly.
Right.
And how do they fill it? By dispatching the most readily available generation sources.
Which are?
The highly expensive, dirty gas peaker plants.
The peaker plants are the most expensive to run because they sit idle most of the time. They're like the high-interest credit card of the power system.
Precisely. So when you force the public grid to replace continuous, cheap, clean nuclear output with intermittent, expensive, and polluting gas peaker plants, what happens?
Prices go up for everyone else.
It fundamentally and structurally drives up the wholesale price of electricity for every single remaining residential customer and small business in that entire region. Amazon locks in a cheap, reliable fixed rate for itself by privatizing a public resource, while at the same time forcing the public market to rely on the most expensive alternatives.
The metaphor holds perfectly. Amazon took the prime cut of steak, the cheap, reliable nuclear baseload, and left you, the ratepayer, with the expensive, less efficient scraps from the peaker plant.
And then your bill went up.
Your bill went up to pay for those scraps because the overall market price for all remaining electricity has been structurally inflated by the loss of that cheap supply. It's an ingenious and incredibly cruel strategy.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this nuclear theft is a blueprint. It's a blueprint for corporate control over essential resources. Nuclear power plants take decades to plan and build. They represent immense public investment over their lifetime.
And now a single corporation can just take one.
In one contract, a single corporation can remove a vital stabilizing asset from the public domain and turn it into a private utility for their AI infrastructure. It guarantees that the public grid will be perpetually stressed, reliant on expensive replacements, and vulnerable to volatility.
And think about Amazon's position here. They are now immune from the price volatility that they are actively creating for everyone else.
Completely immune.
They've guaranteed their 5 nines reliability, that's 99.999% uptime at a fixed cost, ensuring their AI models run flawlessly, while the externalized volatility and the rising costs are dumped onto the residential and small business customers who were supposed to be the beneficiaries of that public asset. The sheer scale of this corporate cannibalism of publicly subsidized infrastructure is just staggering.
It's institutionalized theft of a public good. And it's made possible because the utility, in its desire for a massive, reliable anchor client like Amazon, is willing to structure a deal that actively undermines the long-term stability and affordability mandate it has to its other customers. They traded long-term public benefit for immediate, massive corporate revenue. The fallout from this, from privatizing baseload power and just relentlessly consuming all available electricity, leads us directly into the ultimate crisis.
Right.
Grid reliability.
Right.
And this is a matter of physics, not economics. The system is a zero-sum game. Supply must equal demand every single second, without fail.
And that delicate balance is being obliterated by AI demand. We know that AI models, these data centers, they're consuming power at growth rates that are exponential. It's faster than utilities can legally permit, finance, and physically build new generation capacity.
Right.
The key here, it seems, is the consumption of spare capacity. That buffer, the margin for error that the grid relies on, is just disappearing.
That consumption of the buffer capacity is what we call capacity cannibalism. The load required by these new data center clusters is so massive, so concentrated, and growing so quickly that it is eating into the essential reserves that the grid operator needs to navigate the unexpected.
Like an unexpected outage or a sudden cold snap or a long heat wave.
Exactly. Those reserves are the lifeblood of reliability.
Yeah.
And they're being cannibalized.
And we don't have to guess that this is happening. We have proof in the financial markets for electricity right now.
We do?
Let's look at PJM again, the grid operator for those 13 states. In a recent capacity auction, which is the mechanism where they contract for power supply years in advance to ensure stability, the prices just spiked.
Astronomical 800%.
800%. What does that number actually mean?
That 800% spike is the market screaming a dire warning. A capacity auction is basically the system paying power generators to guarantee that they will be available to produce power in, say, 2026, no matter what it costs them.
It's the insurance policy for the grid.
It is the insurance policy. And the normal price is low because there's usually enough spare capacity to go around. When prices jump eightfold, it signals that the market has fundamentally lost faith in the available supply to meet future peak demand. All the spare capacity is gone or is locked up behind the meter for the data centers.
So utilities now have to pay 8 times more just to acquire the contractual guarantees that they can draw on power if a major plant fails or if a weather emergency hits.
Yes.
And that enormous 8-fold cost increase naturally is immediately passed down to the residential ratepayer via those structural rate hikes we already talked about.
Every penny.
We are paying the insurance premium for a scarcity that big tech created.
Let's paint the picture for the listener. Let's move beyond the jargon. Imagine the summer of 2026. A massive, prolonged heat wave hits a densely populated area, let's say Chicago or the suburbs of New York.
Okay.
Everyone turns on their AC simultaneously. For safety, for comfort, historically the grid had a built-in buffer to meet that peak demand. But in 2026, that buffer is gone.
It was already consumed by the newest generation of AI data centers built with ratepayer money.
Right. There simply isn't enough power or juice to satisfy the combined demand of residential customers running their ACs and massive data centers running their servers.
That capacity constraint forces the ultimate ethical and operational decision for the grid operators. Who gets the power? Who gets prioritized when failure is imminent?
And the answer is already baked into the contract structure, and it is brutally unjust. The data centers, these multi-billion-dollar enterprises, have contracts demanding 5 nines reliability, 99.999% uptime.
They pay for it.
They pay massive premiums and have legal agreements demanding that their servers cannot go dark. Their entire business model depends on perfect uptime.
And a residential listener, you listening right now.
You do not have a 5 nines contract. Your service is governed by a standard agreement. And that agreement contains broad regulatory language, allowing for service interruptions during system emergencies or when system integrity is threatened.
So the consequence is obvious.
It's stark. Rolling brownouts, or demand shaving. When the system frequency starts to drop, which is the immediate precursor to a widespread catastrophic blackout, the grid operator will be forced to shed load.
They'll start cutting power.
They will actively cut power to residential neighborhoods, not just to save energy in general, but specifically to preserve the grid's balance and, crucially, to preserve the integrity of the system.
Which is a euphemism for keeping the high-paying, contracted corporate customers, the servers, running.
Exactly.
This is the operational reality of capacity cannibalism. Your comfort, your physical safety during a heat emergency, your ability to run basic appliances in your home are all secondary to the operational needs of a private, for-profit cloud computing center.
That's the trade-off.
Your AC turns off so ChatGPT can keep writing poems. That is the trade-off we have now structurally imposed on ourselves.
And we really need to reflect on the societal breakdown this implies. The mandate for a utility was always universal service and reliability for the public good.
Right.
When the utility actively designs a two-tiered system where private corporate profitability takes precedence over public health and safety, the social contract is fundamentally broken. Small businesses that rely on consistent power for refrigeration or manufacturing, they face impossible operating conditions, while the massive tech campus next door enjoys continuous service.
It's the ultimate perversion. We paid for the wire, we paid for the power plant replacement, and now we are the ones who have to sit in the dark while the servers hum away. All because the AI boom's exponential demand has outstripped our physical ability to build new generation, and what generation we have left is legally prioritized for the highest bidder. So if the threat of capacity constraints and rolling brownouts is the stick, then the next topic we need to address reveals the sophisticated tool they are using to implement control and rationing. The smart meter. We are now transitioning from the theft of your money and your electrons to the theft of your autonomy and comfort inside your own home.
The rollout of the smart meter has been going on for years now, and it's always been marketed with this positive veneer, better management, saving energy, data optimization.
Right, it's for your benefit.
Of course. And while they are technically efficient, their deeper, more powerful functionality is often overlooked. The smart meter is fundamentally a two-way rationing and control device.
A control device.
It provides the perfect communication channel the utility needs to manage demand inside your home during peak stress hours or during a grid war emergency.
And this capability has given rise to what are now called demand response programs.
Exactly.
And let's be clear, these are not voluntary energy-saving initiatives. They are utility contracts specifically designed to ensure that when big tech needs maximum power, your consumption at home is automatically and forcibly reduced.
That is exactly what they are. Utilities offer these minor financial incentives, a $25 gift card, maybe a small credit on the bill, to get you to enroll. But once you're enrolled, these demand response programs allow the utility, during high demand or peak pricing hours, to remotely and automatically control your essential appliances.
Like what? What can they actually do?
They can use the smart meter to remotely adjust your thermostat, raising the temperature by several degrees during the hottest part of the day, forcing your AC compressor to cycle off.
Wow.
They can throttle or pause your EV charger. They can delay your hot water heater cycles or temporarily shut down your pool pump.
So they are essentially turning your home comfort into a controllable variable on the grid operator's dashboard. But let's ask the crucial question. What happens if you decide you don't want to participate? What if a retiree on a fixed income just can't tolerate the heat and wants to opt out of the utility controlling their personal environment.
This is where the punitive financial incentives kick in. This is what we're calling the luxury tax on comfort.
Luxury tax on comfort.
If you attempt to opt out of remote control, or if you decide to override the utilities instruction during a peak event, you face what is effectively surge pricing.
So instead of the standard rate, say 15 cents per kilowatt hour,
You're now looking at peak emergency rates that can soar to $5, $8, or even $10 per kilowatt hour.
$10 per kilowatt hour is not an adjustment. That's a weapon. No middle class or fixed income family can afford to run their air conditioner at that rate for even an hour.
It's not meant to be affordable. That pricing structure is explicitly designed to ensure absolute instant compliance with the utilities rationing order.
So it creates this deeply unfair two-tiered system for essential services.
It does. It's the tiered internet, but applied directly to basic electricity. The wealthy, who can just absorb a few hours of $10 per kilowatt hour pricing, or the data centers, who have multi-million-dollar contracts guaranteeing their supply, they maintain control over their environment. They have guaranteed reliability.
Meanwhile, the vast majority of the middle class is coerced into compliance.
You're forced to sit in the dark and sweat through the heat wave or forego charging your electric vehicle because you just cannot afford the premium price for basic comfort and autonomy in your own home.
Here's where it gets really interesting and, frankly, dystopian. If you can't afford the premium, your home comfort is now dictated by the grid control center.
That's right.
The utility that is making guaranteed profit by building subsidized infrastructure for big tech is the same entity now remotely deciding the temperature of your living room. The smart meter is the tool that facilitates the theft of your autonomy, making you the adjustable lever in the grid war.
And this isn't just an inconvenience. It becomes a genuine public safety hazard. For the elderly, for those with medical conditions who rely on consistent climate control, or for small businesses that need continuous refrigeration, this punitive pricing and forced rationing ties public health directly to your economic status.
The system is structurally prioritizing the continuous, nonstop computation required for AI over the public health and safety needs of the ratepayer base that funds the whole thing.
They can't just physically take the power without causing a total collapse, so they use the smart meter and surge pricing to financially coerce you into voluntarily giving it up.
So the servers can stay online.
It is the perfect, legally sanctioned mechanism for enforcing this tiered energy system. So we've laid it all out. We have meticulously detailed how the residential ratepayer is being systematically robbed structurally and operationally to subsidize this AI boom.
Right.
The first immediate step for you, the listener, has to be proactive defense. You must audit your utility bill now, and you have to do it carefully.
So what are we specifically looking for? Give us the financial jargon we need to identify the crime in progress.
You need to be vigilant for new riders, surcharges, and capacity charges. Utilities are very adept at hiding cost increases in obscure line items. They want to avoid the politically sensitive phrase, rate increase.
Okay, so look for things like
Infrastructure recovery surcharges, distribution investment riders, or a capacity transmission adjustment. Check the historical comparison on your bill. If a non-usage-based fee has jumped 20, 30, or 40% year over year, you are paying for the amortization of big tech's new infrastructure.
And you have to understand, these increases are not temporary.
Not at all. They are structural additions to your energy costs, directly tied to the multi-decade amortization of the billions being spent on data center infrastructure. You are paying the principal, the interest, and the profit on Amazon's new transmission lines.
So that's the defense. Now for the offense. Since the system is structurally rigged against you, and since these costs are clearly unavoidable, they're legally mandated, the smart move is to hedge your financial exposure.
Yes.
You invest in the companies that are legally mandated to profit from this exact arrangement. If you can't beat the system, you buy a piece of the fix.
This is textbook hedging against systemic cost inflation. Your unavoidable expense is now somebody else's legally guaranteed revenue. We want to own that revenue stream.
Okay, let's start with strategy one. Long the utilities. We're calling them the toll collectors.
Utility companies were, for a long time, considered boring defensive assets, the classic widow and orphan stock.
Right, low growth, steady dividends.
Exactly. Relying on slow population expansion. That entire financial profile has changed almost overnight. They are now AI growth stocks.
Wow.
The moment a utility like Dominion or Southern Company secures a massive multi-billion-dollar build-out contract for a hyperscaler, their entire financial outlook changes from flat growth to accelerated CapEx and profit expansion.
Let's break down the mechanics of that financial advantage again, focusing on that return on equity.
Utilities now have two incredibly powerful advantages. First, guaranteed exponentially growing customers, big tech, with effectively infinite stable energy demands.
Okay.
And second, that crucial lever, the guaranteed return on equity. A utility's profit is directly tied to its capital spending. If a utility needs to spend $1 billion on a new substation for a data center campus, they are legally guaranteed by the regulator to get that $1 billion back, plus, say, a 10% profit margin over the asset's life,
Paid for by the entire rate base, including you.
which removes all capital risk for the utility.
So they are actively incentivized to choose the most expensive, most complicated solution because it guarantees them a larger future profit. They get paid to spend our money.
It truly is a perpetual money machine, fueled by massive, relentless corporate demand, and subsidized by the captive residential ratepayer base. This is why smart money is rotating out of potentially overvalued non-physical tech and into the regulated physical infrastructure bottleneck that these utilities own.
So what are the names? What are the tickers people should look at?
You'd want to look at utilities operating heavily in data center hubs. So Southern Company, ticker SO, Dominion Energy, ticker D, they have massive exposure in Data Center Alley. And NextEra Energy, NEE, which is heavily involved in connecting large-scale renewable projects to meet these industrial loads. Buying these stocks is a direct hedge against your rising utility bill.
Okay, strategy 2. Long the grid. We're calling them the picks and shovels.
Right.
You can't run a data center on a regular extension cord. You need industrial-grade, specialized hardware.
Massive, bespoke power distribution hardware. We're talking about giant, multi-ton, high-capacity transformers, specialized switchgear, and high-voltage cables. And critically, there is a global systemic shortage of this hardware. The lead times are measured not in weeks, but in years.
And those lead times translate directly into pricing power for the manufacturers. Big tech is desperate.
They're absolutely desperate. The companies that manufacture and install this infrastructure are enjoying unprecedented pricing power because big tech, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they have no alternative. They must pay whatever the price is to get their servers online to capture the AI boom.
So this is the industrial supercycle.
That's what the market is calling it. While the software component of AI may be competitive, the physical hardware required to run it is a protected, high-margin bottleneck.
So who are the key companies here? Who has order books full until 2030?
You'd look at Eaton, ticker ETN, a major supplier of electrical components and switchgear. Quanta Services, ticker PWR, which handles the actual construction and maintenance of these new power lines. And Hubble, HBB, which provides high-voltage components and connectors. These companies are the essential, bottleneck suppliers of the infrastructure being paid for by the grid war.
Okay, let's synthesize everything we've covered. The AI boom is a generational technological advance, no doubt. But the cost of powering it, a cost measured in trillions of dollars, is being intentionally and legally hidden in your monthly utility bills.
Through regulatory manipulation and socialized infrastructure spending.
You are paying for the roads, the power plant replacement, the truck, and the gas. And in return, you get the risk of a brownout.
The crucial takeaway, then, must transition from just an investment strategy to one of self-protection.
Right.
Because the grid is being intentionally cannibalized and structurally tiered to prioritize high-paying data centers, personal reliability for you, the residential customer, is no longer a luxury. It is mandatory insurance against systemic failure.
So we need to shift our thinking from purely financial hedging to physical self-protection. Given the looming threat of rolling brownouts and the forced rationing via smart meters, what does investing in resilience actually look like for the average person?
Since we can foresee the inevitability of these capacity constraints and the coming rationing via demand response programs, self-generation is really the only way to safeguard your comfort and your security.
So a generator.
An investment in a reliable residential backup generator, like one from Generac, or installing solar power paired with a battery storage system like a Tesla Powerwall, is no longer an environmental statement or a luxury item.
It's essential insurance.
It becomes essential mandatory insurance against the demand response rationing.
It is insurance against the utility control center deciding that your family has to sweat through a heat wave so the servers can stay cool.
Exactly. Energy independence is the only way to effectively opt out of the tiered system that's being created. It ensures comfort, security, and power continuity when the grid operator, under contractual obligation to big tech, is forced to press that residential blackout button.
And the rising cost of electricity suddenly makes the payback period on solar and batteries much shorter than it used to be.
Much shorter.
This is the ultimate defense against the grid war. They are upgrading the world, but they are doing it using your credit card. They're forcing you to pay for their infrastructure and then forcing you to sit in the dark when that infrastructure is stressed.
And the only effective defense is twofold.
Own the financial hedge, the utility and infrastructure shares, and own your power source, the generator or the battery.
And the profound irony in all of this is that in the pursuit of exponential corporate efficiency and profit, the system is driving the average person toward a radical form of personal energy independence.
Because the public utility system has failed.
It has structurally failed in its core mandate of reliable, affordable, universal service in favor of corporate profitability. #tagoutro. The structural shift we've meticulously documented today, this intentional transfer of cost and capacity from the public grid to private corporate entities, it raises a very challenging and essential question, one that cuts right to the heart of the American social contract.
The nuclear theft alone.
The nuclear theft removed nearly a gigawatt of reliable, cheap, public power and structurally raised costs for every single remaining residential ratepayer.
And the multi-billion-dollar infrastructure needed to power these new AI facilities is being paid for directly by residential surcharges, by fixed-income households.
So what's fascinating here is, does the prioritization of Five9's reliability for private, for-profit AI systems, a reliability that is guaranteed through socialized infrastructure costs, legally mandated profits for the utility, and enforced through the threat of residential brownouts and rationing, does that fundamentally erode the core principles of public utilities?
It has to.
If Amazon owns the nuclear plant and you own the resulting rate hike, what does that say about the new definition of the American dream, where public resources are privatized and the resulting debt and instability are entirely socialized?
It says the deck is stacked and the game is fixed. But armed with the knowledge of how they are doing it, you are no longer a passive victim. You now know exactly where to audit your bill, where to hedge your money in the market, and most importantly, how to protect your home from the inevitable capacity shortages. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the grid war. Go audit your situation and make sure you're ready for the 2026 heatwave.